is being admitted into a psychiatric hospital a get-out-of-jail-free card. On Wednesday, rape accused Nicholas Ninow was admitted to Weskopies Psychiatric Hospital for evaluation. Ninow will be reviewed by a medical team of 4, including 3 psychiatrists and a psychologist. eNCA's Erin Bates visited the psychiatric hospital in Gauteng to find out what happens during this evaluation. She joins me now. Erin, good evening. Firstly, just tell us about your experience at the psychiatric hospital. If I remember correctly, of course, there's a difference between a prisoner who's arrested and put under psychiatric evaluation and one that's taken to a mental institution. So what did you find there?
So, Kathy, first, just important to distinguish between Weskopies, where Ninow is now receiving observation, and the hospital I went to, which is Sterkfontein, which is in Krugersdorp. And we went there to try and get a better sense of what happens during this 30-day period. You're quite right. There is a distinction between patients who are admitted for psychiatric observation. So those are patients who need to be assessed because their mental state is relevant to the case, and that's the situation Ninow is in. And then we get patients who have been found to be unfit to stand trial because of their mental health concerns, and they are then admitted as long-term patients in the ward. So they won't go through trial and conviction, but it's very specific cases when patients have been diagnosed with severe mental health conditions.
So in terms of the process then that officials have to follow from here on, what will Ninow undergo in the next 30 days?
In fact, I put that to one of the forensic psychiatrists who is at Sterkfontein and oversees these kinds of assessments. Before we get there, I think it's important just to set the scene in terms of what I heard from the CEO of Sterkfontein, Jimmy Maponya, and he gave us a sense of the kinds of challenges they're facing specifically around dealing with the forensic unit. Let's have a look.
All right, while we wait for that bite to come on, let's talk about what they told you about what will happen over the next 30 days.
Sure. So that also involves playing something from one of my interviews. So I'll just kind of set it up so that we get a sense of it first. So what the CEO said, Kathy, is that they face a lot of challenges in terms of backlog. They have between 200 and 350 patients who need to be admitted for forensic assessment in the psychiatric ward. Those are people like Ninow who need to go through that 30-day period of assessment. So onto that 30-day period assessment you've asked about and what happens there, they're very isolated. So whereas the patients in the other wards may gain certain privileges through their behavior and their treatment, like working in a garden project or maybe being involved in sporting activities, the people who are undergoing forensic observation are under scrutiny 24/7 for a 30-day period. So nurses on site, the psychiatrists, many of the staff members, including occupational therapists and social workers, are really honing in on whether this person has the kind of mental health concerns that may put them in a situation where they can't stand trial. And what's important there is that while Ninow has a previous diagnosis of bipolar disorder, from what the hospital staff told me, that doesn't necessarily mean that he was not cognizant of his behavior the night he's alleged to have dragged that girl into a bathroom and raped her.
So is the state clear about what exactly it is that they would need out of this psychiatric evaluation in order to strengthen whatever case it is that they'll be putting against Ninow?
Excellent question. And what happens at this stage is answering 2 very narrow questions. The one relates to his state of mind at the time of the alleged incident, or the incident which definitely occurred, which he is alleged to have committed. The other is his state of mind now. So there are 2 really narrow yes or no questions that need to be answered. And all of the work to establish the answers to those 2 questions will be documented. So it may not be used now. At the end of the 30-day period, they have a single page of paper with findings on it, but all of that research and interviews and the like will be held and may well be used in the trial. I don't know, Kathy, if we're at a point now where we can maybe throw to any of those interviews, but they will be in the package that I will be filing for eNCA later. And from it, you get a real sense of the kind of work that happens when those 30-day assessments take place.
Just to wrap it up here, Erin, many people have been talking about the kind of attention that seems to be paid to Ninow. Meanwhile, at the end of the day, there is a young girl who really is at the heart of the suffering here. What do we know about the 7-year-old? Where is she today?
So what we do know from court earlier this week, when Ninow briefly appeared in the Pretoria Regional Court on Wednesday, is that she started the school year. Her family want to continue their anonymity at this point, and you can entirely understand why. That needs to be respected in the circumstances. But a member of the Not in My Name campaign, who's close to the aunt of this child rape survivor, says she's a very sort of plucky young girl who has somewhat recovered, and the family is very eager to see justice, and they've also conveyed a message of thanks to those who've shown solidarity with the family through this time. What's also critical to know is that a lot of the testimony from family who were at the restaurant, as well as some interviews potentially with that child rape survivor, will be critical to this case. And also critical is that the NPA this week confirmed that a white powder which was found on Ninow's person the night he was apprehended at that Dros in Silverton was taken for narcotics testing. The results have come back and it's been confirmed to have been cat.
All right. Of course, that has a bearing on the case. Are they adding more charges?
No, the drug possession charge was an initial charge. She faces 3 charges. One is rape, the other is drug possession, the third is assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm.
All right, fantastic. Let's leave it there for tonight. Erin Bates will have a full story, a full report for us later on Newsnight.